Hi guys, and welcome back. Today I decided I'm going to do a closer look video on the Nailbiter murder editions. I really want to just give you guys a bit of a closer look at the quality of the build of these books, the as I say, kind of graphics and stuff on the front, and the kind of art and stuff inside, because I really can't speak up enough about how great the build of these books are and how much you should pick them up in this format and not in any kind of trade or kind of single. The book itself is, sort of highly underrated. There's been a few people that have picked it up recently through sort of, I think there was DCM or something like that, sort of cheaper versions that didn't have as nice kind of covers, or I've seen it on a few people's shelves in the kind of background. It's slowly becoming one of those books, as I say, like Deus Ex or sort of 100 Bullets, where it's on everybody's shelves, but nobody's talking about it, or they're all promising to talk about it once they've read it, but they've never actually read it. So, to give you guys a little bit of background, I read Nailbiter originally in trades. I totally stumbled across it in what is now the closed down comic book shop, Forbidden Planet in Aberdeen. And I basically picked up the first book because I loved the kind of the art that was on the front of it. It had this kind of I'll maybe show you when we have a closer look at the books itself. But it had this kind of white cover with a kind of coloured strip down it, and then within the coloured strip it had kind of a graphic of, I forget if it was like a hand with a bleeding nail or something like that, and it just really caught my eye. And I was like, oh, what's that all about? So I read it through, as I say, in trades. I bought one or two to begin with, and then I was so hooked I just bought the other four and read kind of straight through it. It was really interesting to read as volume to volume in trades, because each trade kind of left its own little kind of cliffhanger going from one to the other. So that is something you do somewhat miss a little bit reading it in the hardcovers, because obviously you go straight from trade 1 to 2 or 3 to 4. So you don't get as many cliffhangers if you just read kind of straight through, although I guess you could stop halfway through the book if you wanted. But other than that, as I said, there's not really any difference in what the experience would be of the story between kind of the trades and the kind of the hardcovers. The hardcovers obviously are oversized, so the art gets kind of bigger, and they lie out a bit kind of nicer because the spines are kind of sewn. So let's take a closer look at the books itself. Okay, so these covers are really cool. I want to show you sort of one at a time the actual covers of the book, and then I want to show you the spines, because it looks really cool. So the first one here, we've got a sort of bloody hand dripping down into what looks like a kind of mouth. I guess that's supposed to be one. We've got a sort of just dead skull, again kind of blood everywhere, and then we've got sort of two dead bodies, kind of one biting the other one's nails. So that's really cool. If we look at the spines, as I say, the blood splatter on the standard editions actually matches up across the spines, so you get this kind of splatter going across here, which looks really cool on the shelf overall. Now, when it comes to the build of the books, they are ever so slightly different between books 1 and 2 and book 3. Book 1 and 2 has, I don't know how well you're going to see this, but it has a little bit of a gap after the kind of ribbon at the bottom here, and it's the same at the top. When you split the book open, I say these spread out okay, but they are kind of glued down to the spine. I believe that's the same with, as I say, book 1. Yeah, it doesn't really kind of rise up. But then on book 3, as I say, it's a bit wider, and if you can see here, the ribbon comes to the very edge of the book, almost past the edge of the book, and then at the top here we've got a much larger gap, so it's almost like they've put it too far down on the hardcover. But the cool thing with this book is, like I say, I believe it has a proper sewn-in spine. So where you see this one, it raises up away from the overall kind of spine of the book. The binding kind of bends up, which is really nice. And it just means that you fight that a lot less, and the pages just lie out, you know, sort of really well. You do get that kind of creaking and things occasionally because I see the spine is flexing, but you know, it's just really cool to see. So let's have a closer look inside, as I say, book 1, just so you guys can get an idea, as I say, of the art and things. So first of all, inside the books, they all have Nailbiter on black, going down to blood and their number at the bottom, and then quotes on the back. This collects issues 1 through 10. I believe each of them are sort of 10 issues, and it's rated M for mature. This is quoted as being $34.99 US. As I say, I bought this in the UK. I think I paid about £20 for each of these. These are by Joshua Williamson. The artist is Mike Henderson and colorist Adam Guzoki. Letterer John J. Hill and editor Rob Levin. As they published by Image Comics. We've got a foreword here by Robert Kirkman, and then we just jump straight in. I really like the art throughout. It feels like, and I say this quite a lot, the overall kind of line art is very similar to something you would see in sort of a noir, sort of Ed Brubaker book. It's that kind of Sean Phillips art, but the colour really kind of pops, almost in a cartoony kind of way. So you get these really focused in kind of blood splatters and things like that throughout the book. We've got a white section in most of the book, so the gutter isn't too much of a problem, although as I say, I would have liked books 1 and 2 to have had the same binding as the third one. They play with the horror elements throughout the book. I don't know if we're going to come across it in this first one as I go through it, but there's elements where there's like a sequence of like lights flashing off and on, and you'll see in the equivalent panels it'll be like a coloured panel, a black panel, a coloured panel, a black panel. And I thought that was quite cool. I think it's here, and it kind of goes throughout something happening. And if you kind of watch in the background, you see things kind of moving around and kind of creeping up on them and stuff. So it's quite cool. It plays with the visual element of the comic book and plays right into the kind of medium. The text size is really just fine, it's right. It's quite bold and easy to read, and I don't find it too heavy, so it's a fun kind of quick read through. I would recommend, as I say, reading sort of each book sort of with a little bit of a gap, just because I kind of like the cliffhanger kind of element of things. Okay, let's skip to the back of this one. So we've got extras in all 3 of these books, and it's quite good overall. So we get the kind of cover art for things. I don't know if it's got the cover art for the original trades. Looking to show you guys that. I'll see if it pops up. So we've got, I say, these different covers throughout the kind of single issues. That's the ones for the trades. So I say that was the first one I kind of saw in the shop that really kind of popped, and I just had to pick it up and try it out. Obviously, it would have had Nailbiter or something up it or down it or something like that. So we've got the script to issue 1. This looks like it's the original pitch for Nailbiter, so this would have been what would have been sent to Image to pitch if they want to publish the book, so it's kind of like a short idea of what the book could be. We've got some layout pages coloured kind of through the process until we get the text and everything, and then character designs. So that's really cool. Okay, so Nailbiter as a book is a somewhat slasher story, somewhat kind of murder mystery about a kind of small town. The small town's called Buckaroo, and basically it's supposed to be famous for having serial killers being from that town. Now, they use the serial killer term very sort of loosely. They call them the Buckaroo Butchers, which basically means anybody who's committed lots of murders. So it doesn't necessarily need to be that they done the same murder with a sort of signature slash every single kind of time. It could be that they committed kind of a mass murder, or it could be that you know, they believed to have committed murders but actually got off with it, or you know, whatever the case may be. It's basically just that there are murderers, or butchers as I say, as they call them, from Buckaroo, which is the fictional town that this is kind of based in. The story starts off with basically our sort of, I guess, main character, Warren, has been sort of let out of prison because he wasn't convicted of the kind of crimes that he's supposedly committed. So the town's kind of up in ears about this, and they kind of want the police to kind of guard his house so that he can't kind of, you know, come out and hurt anyone, and you know, there's this whole kind of just tension around the town overall. We get a story arc around a somewhat, I forget if he's a reporter or a writer, but he goes to the town to kind of find out why there's so many kind of murderers from this small town, and what's kind of going on there. Something happens to him, and his friend, sort of ex-cop, gets kind of called in to help further investigate, or kind of help. So we have this local, younger kind of white girl cop in the town, and we have this other, as I say, kind of larger black male cop who kind of comes in, and they're somewhat kind of working around each other and with each other at different times to kind of try and solve what's kind of going on. She's kind of doing it somewhat to begin with because, you know, she just doesn't want the town to get up in kind of more hysterics while he's there, and somewhat control him, but from his perspective he's trying to find out about his friend and, you know, what's kind of going on. We get different arcs as things go throughout, where our kind of cops interrogate Warren throughout the book, and he gives different explanations as to how these butchers came about, you know, if they were kind of manufactured or trained, or if it's DNA, or if it's, you know, something in the water, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And as I say, each kind of main arc, almost a trade, so 5 to 6 issues, has a premise, and it kind of twists slightly or completely resets in the next kind of 6 issues. So we're constantly kind of doing that throughout. There's lots of little slasher throwbacks and kind of piss takes throughout the book, to an extent. So we have kind of Warren in a jail sequence at one point doing a whole kind of Silence of the Lambs bit, and there's a few different, as I say, kind of bits throughout. There is a hack slash crossover in here, and I believe that's only included in the hardcovers. I don't think that's in the trades, so that's an extra that you get in here, and that's kind of cool to see because I've never read hack slash, although, as I say, Emma has, so we have them all, or at least up to date as to them all. I think they're doing another further one. But it was good to get a bit of a taste of that to see if it's something I want to kind of check out myself, and it seems quite fun, so, you know, it might be something I kind of move on to after, you know, I get through a bunch of this other stuff. Okay, I'm going to have to say, you know, as I say, sort of spoiler warning at this point. I don't want to go any further without saying spoilers because, you know, as I say, it's a good book, and I don't want you to, You know, blame me if you feel that you're not getting as much out of it after me having said something. I've read the book at least 3 times now throughout and enjoyed it every time, so I don't think it's any lesser a book if you know what's happening, but you know, you've had your warning. So as we kind of get into the story overall, Warren gets involved in the kind of investigation, and as I say, almost sets the tone for what it is that we believe every sort of trade worth of kind of information. So we have that kind of going on throughout the book. We get more and more other characters kind of tied into who's looking into things. There is a sort of murder store in the town for kind of tourist things, so they're selling various outfits and t-shirts and stuff to do with the different famous sort of butchers. I believe it's owned or ran by people who are related to some of the other kind of butchers in the town. We learn things like that the butchers only become butchers once they leave the town, and there's other just, you know, kind of key things like that. There's this kind of main black horned kind of butcher guy going about, and we start kind of following him towards the kind of tail end of the book. Everyone's trying to find out where he came from or what he's doing and where he's going off to and how that ties into other people that are still in the town, and you know, we start solving the mystery as things kind of go on. I've said spoilers already, but I'm going to say spoilers again. The book kind of comes to a conclusion at the end where there's a certain character in a kind of shower, and Warren kind of comes in, and then we see that character kind of turn around, is actually clothed as if they've kind of tricked Warren to be there, and they've got a gun, and kind of cut to black, right? So the interpretation taken there would be that character killed Warren and that's the end of it, right? But you then get to the end of the physical book and there's this panel which I could be wrong, but I believe it's nowhere else in the book, and it's basically Warren walking away with a body bag over his shoulder, and that would indicate to me that he survived that sequence, killed that person, and is now walking away from Buckaroo. So it depends on how you took it. As I say, it depends on how you looked at things. I don't know if that panel is in the trades or not. I want to show you guys if I can find it. And as I say, that's the very last thing that you see in these books. So that indicates to me, as I say, that he's ongoing. But as I say, different people have their own interpretations. You're going to take your own kind of cut from things. And I've read the book, as I say, 3 times, twice in this format and once in the trades. Because, as I say, I read it the first time round. I read it when I first got these, and then I reread through, I want to say, at least the first 2 before the third one came out. I'm not into horror books. I'm not into sort of fighting for fighting's sake, or you know, just mass murder kind of stuff or whatever. But this is really interesting. It has lots of little Easter eggs to kind of like horror and kind of slasher kind of films and other stories. And as I say, it's a bit of a murder mystery. So my brain, when reading it, is very much, you know, in the same mode if I was reading like, you know, Criminal or The Fade Out or something like that. But we're getting these kind of slasher or jokey elements kind of thrown in, which kind of just lightens the mood overall when you're kind of reading it. And I guess that's the biggest difference between something like, you know, this, where I would consider this as more slasher-esque than kind of horror-esque. It's not gruesome for the sense of like gruesome. It's not kind of disgusting bugs and bleeding out and all that kind of stuff to that kind of extent, like you would see in something like maybe Regression's a bit kind of higher detail for that kind of stuff. This is very much kind of blood splattered or red eyes, or whatever the case may be, and you have those kind of moments. Alright guys, thanks for watching. As always, share this video with your friends if you think they'd like to know anything more about Nailbiter. Share it with all the other YouTube channels out there to get them to do their reviews, because I want this whole discussion from everybody, so hopefully this will push the rest of the guys to get their videos out as well. As always, comment below if you've read the book or plan on reading the book in any kind of format, and any thoughts you kind of have now going in, or you have kind of after having kind of read it. Please don't spoil all the ins and outs for everybody in the comments, but as I say, I'd love to have your discussion around the kind of the ending, maybe just your thoughts in that kind of area. Rate this video to let me know if you liked it or not, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. Alright guys, thanks for watching.